Across Europe, long before supermarkets and refrigeration, households relied on methods that kept food edible for months, sometimes years. These were not just clever tricks, they were essential survival skills honed through generations of necessity. Understanding these practices gives historians, documentary enthusiasts, and modern survivalists insight into everyday life and resilience during times of scarcity. They preserved grains, legumes, and flour with careful rotation. Grains and legumes were the backbone of daily sustenance. Families stored wheat, barley, oats, and beans in tightly sealed containers, often ceramic or metal, inside cool, dry spaces. The key was rotation. The oldest stock was used first to prevent spoilage, a habit grandparents practiced daily. Now, back in the day, flour was stored in cloth sacks inside wooden bins or cupboards. Sometimes folks would even layer it with a light coating of ash, to keep those pesky insects at bay. They sure did rely on root cellars and underground storage for temperature control. You see, before we had refrigerators, controlling the temperature was absolutely crucial. Our grandparents often dug cellars beneath their homes or barns. They used these spaces to store vegetables, fruits, and dairy. Those root cellars, they maintained a consistent cool temperature all year round, slowing down decay and really prolonging freshness. Back in the day, folks would pack carrots, turnips, cabbages, and potatoes in sand or straw. This helped keep the moisture levels just right. Even apples and pears found their place in slatted wooden bins or were hung from the rafters. This way they wouldn't get all bruised up. They had quite a few ways to preserve meat back then. Salting, smoking, and drying were the go-to methods. Fresh meat was a rare treat, highly valued. To make it last longer, families would salt cure it, smoke it over slow fires, or let it air dry. Now, hams and sausages, they were heavily salted, sometimes even rubbed with a bit of sugar or spices. They'd store them in barrels or hang them from the rafters. Smoking the meat over oak, beech, or whatever local woods they had gave it a nice flavor and kept it good for months on end. Fish was also salted or smoked in the same way. Practically anyone studying historical methods can experiment with small-scale smoking racks or salt curing in tightly sealed containers. And it's important to keep records of temperature and timing for authentic results. They fermented and pickled vegetables and fruits. Fermentation was a daily practice, not just a seasonal activity. Sauerkraut, pickled cucumbers, and preserved fruits were, real staples. These methods relied on natural bacteria to extend shelf life and enhance flavor. Families monitored brine levels daily, always making sure vegetables remained submerged to prevent mold. Jars and crocks were kept in cool, dark areas and rotated regularly. Applying this today is actually pretty straightforward. Fermenting cabbage or cucumbers in a cool pantry with proper brine, it replicates the exact process used by households across Europe for centuries. They canned and jarred foods for the winter months. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, canning became common in European households. Grandparents sterilized jars, filled them with fruits, vegetables, or cooked preserves, and sealed them tightly. The process required precise timing and cleanliness to prevent spoilage. Historical records show families dedicating entire days to canning after harvest, making sure they had a winter supply of stewed fruits, jams, and even cooked meats. Practically speaking, modern historians can follow those traditional canning techniques using glass jars and water baths, kind of creating edible archives of the past. They stored dairy through butter, cheese, and whey preservation. Milk spoiled real quick without refrigeration, so turning it into long-lasting products was just essential. Butter was churned and stored in cool clay pots or barrels, sometimes salted to stretch out its shelf life. Cheese, often hard or semi-hard, was aged down in cellars, wrapped in cloth, and rotated regularly. Whey from cheese-making was sometimes consumed or used in baking to prevent waste. Enthusiasts can, replicate these methods at home, experimenting with small batches of cheese or cultured butter, while maintaining a historical rhythm of daily attention and rotation. They organized daily inspections and maintenance of their stores. Perhaps the most critical habit was, honestly, constant vigilance. Grandparents inspected every container, barrel, and jar daily or weekly. Any sign of spoilage was removed immediately to prevent contamination. So they would rotate stocks, replace sand or straw in root storage top-up brines, and adjust airflow in cellars. This level of daily discipline, ensured that families never went without food, even during wars, economic hardship, or those harsh winters. They adapted storage to seasonality and scarcity. Storage wasn't just about preserving, it was about, anticipating shortages. Grandparents adjusted quantities and types of food stored depending on harvest yields and expected winter needs. They conserved high-value items like dried fruits, honey, and cured meats for special meals while maintaining basic staples for daily survival. Historical documents show careful lists of quantities and rotation schedules, which can be studied and adapted today for emergency preparedness or even historical reenactments. Incorporating these historic habits into your study or practical application provides more than just knowledge. It connects you to the resilience and resourcefulness of European households from the past. From grains to fermented vegetables, from root cellars to smoked meats, every habit demonstrates a system built on observation, care, and foresight. Practicing even a fraction of these techniques today gives insight into the rhythm of daily life and survival strategies used for centuries. For serious historians, reenactors, and survival enthusiasts, understanding and applying these food storage methods is invaluable. By storing grains properly, using cellars or cool spaces, fermenting vegetables, smoking meats, canning preserves, and maintaining dairy products, you can replicate a historically accurate household while gaining practical skills that are still relevant today. If you found this guide useful and want to continue exploring the practical survival methods of past European generations, make sure to subscribe to Warpaths of Europe. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts so they can uncover the everyday skills that kept families fed through the toughest times.